If England win this game, they're going all the way to the final. Germany will have to be at their very best to beat this English team. Believe this is the perfect game for one player, and that's Marcus Rashford. England versus Germany, round of 16, match preview. Let's go. What's going on, guys? This is For The Fans. It's the World of Football show, and before we get started, if you're watching this video and you haven't subscribed to the channel as yet, hit that subscribe button and let's get started. England are going to win this, and that's not because they are the better team than Germany. It's simply because they are better organized and more defensively sound than Germany. The Germans play some of the best football in this competition. The teams that play the best football is Germany, is Belgium, and you can put Italy there as well. These are the three countries that play the best football. However, the Germans' Achilles heel is their defending. They are very poor in defensive transitions, and that's not because of the way that they play. That's not because of how expansive they are. That's because of how they are set up. When you look at how they are set up, the Germans play 3-4-3. And they've mastered that formation when it comes to attacking. They are wonderful when it comes to attacking. You see the fluidity at which they attack. And in that formation, the most important people in that formation is your wingbacks. It's your wingbacks and it's your midfielders, because your midfielders need to know sometimes they're playing with only two in the middle. It's only them two in the middle, and there's other times where there's four of them in the middle when the fullbacks come and stand in the same line as the midfielders. So the critical people in the formation like that is your wingbacks and it's your midfielders. Your midfielders, because they need to know the organization of the team and where they are, and your wingbacks because they are the ones that create the chances. But the Germans have perfected that formation going forward. They create chance after chance. They use their wingbacks to perfection. However, because of how they are set up, defensively they are poor. Defensively, you can get at them and you can score goals, and many goals against the German team because of how they are set up. What do I mean by that? You look at their midfield. Guys, it's suicide to not play with a holding midfield. It's suicide. We saw in the Champions League final, Manchester City versus Chelsea, Pep Guardiola decided, I don't know how he came up with this brilliant idea, but he decided to not play a holding midfielder, and he played Gundogan in that position, where Gundogan can do a bit of defending, but he is no holding midfielder, and defending is not part of his game. He can defend, but that's not part of his game. Pep Guardiola played it, and as a result of that, Manchester City were outplayed, and Chelsea ended up winning the final because he did not want to play with a holding midfielder. It's the same with the Germans. The Germans do not play with a holding midfielder. They play Toni Kroos and Gundogan in the middle of the pitch. Now, both those players are excellent on the ball, especially Toni Kroos. Toni Kroos is one of the best passers of his generation. I would say the best. I would say the best because that's probably the only thing Toni Kroos can do is pass the ball. You know, he's not an athlete. He's not going to get up and down the pitch, and he can't defend. Defending is not in Toni Kroos' arsenal. That's not in his arsenal. Gundogan, as I said earlier, he can defend, but that's not his game. So they playing with two out and out just midfielders with no holding midfielder, and there's no insurance in front of the defense. So off the ball, Gundogan and Toni Kroos are not the best off the ball. So that's why I say the Germans are set up where they can concede counterattacks and very dangerous counterattacks because they don't play with the holding midfielder. Now, one thing I will give credit to the Germans is that they're always front-footed. You will never see Germany or any main German team, be it Borussia Dortmund, be it RB Leipzig, be it Bayern Munich, any of these teams, you'll never see them parking the bus. You will never see them defending with a low block. And that's one of the things that I can give them credit for, because they are not negative when it comes to football. Even when you look at when Germany won the World Cup in 2014 in Brazil, they outplayed every opponent and they went head to head and they faced their opponents attacking football. They never ever play defensive football. Even the way they are set up, they are not set up to play defensive football. They can easily put Kimmich in the midfield. Kimmich is a holding midfielder. He's an outstanding player, outstanding. They can easily put Kimmich next to Gundogan or Kimmich next to Kroos, but they choose not to because they are so front-footed. So I have to give them credit for that. However, there's something in football called balance, and you need balance. You need balance, and for me, that's their Achilles heel, is not playing with the holding midfielder. So that's where I think they will lose the game, because on the ball they are better than England, and they are better by far, and that's what you will see in this game. You will see the Germans having more possession. I think it'll probably be like 55% to the Germans, maybe even 60% ball possession to the Germans. However, it's off the ball. It's off the ball where England are going to finish them, and I think this is a perfect game for counter-attacking football. That's why I would say play Marcus Rashford. I think he's perfect to run into the channels. England just need to take a leaf out of France's book. When France versed Germany, France were happy to give the Germans the ball, but they were hitting the Germans on the counter-attack. Now, I'm not saying France gave them so much of the ball where the possession was 70-30 or 80-20. No, nothing like that. But they gave them more of the ball because they knew they can hit them on the counter-attack. And you saw Kylian Mbappe running against the German defense. You saw what Mbappe done against Hummels. He gave Hummels a 10-meter gap, and he still got the ball. So Marcus Rashford can have a similar impact. Yes, Marcus Rashford is not as fast as Mbappe. However, Rashford is lightning quick. And I think this is a perfect game for Marcus Rashford. A perfect game. So this is how I think England will set up. I think England will go with a back three. Now, if this was any other country switching their formation to a back three because they play Germany, I would have said this is going to turn out very bad. But because England have played with a back three, because in the UEFA Nations League just a couple months ago, they were playing predominantly with a back three, they're comfortable in that formation. Yes, they're not as good at it as the Germans, but they're still comfortable in that formation. That's a formation that demands a lot of training, a lot of practice, a lot of organizations where people need to know where they need to be on the field in different transitions. And England have had the necessary training to play that formation. So I do think they're going to set out to three at the back. I do think that you will see Kieran Trippier at right wing back and Kyle Walker as a right centre back, and I do think you'll see Luke Shaw left wing back. Now the midfield, we know the midfield, the two in the midfield, we know that's going to be Calvin Phillips and Declan Rice. These guys are going to be throughout the tournament should England beat Germany. The attacking three, that's where it gets tricky, because some people will say put Jack Grealish in, and I admit, guys, Jack Grealish is one of England's best players. It's Jack Grealish and Harry Kane. These are England's best players. However, you need to understand that there are certain players that are fit for certain games. The managers say it all the time. There are certain players that are fit for certain games, and because of the way England are set up, because of the way they are coached, England are set up to play on the counter-attack. England are not set up to play possession football. They're not set up to dominate any team. They're not. England are set up to be very disciplined in defensive organizations and to play on the transition and play on the counter-attack. That's how England are set up. And because of the way England are set up, I think going into this game against Germany, Jack Grealish should not start, because you need to play with counter-attacking players up front. So that's why I would go with Marcus Rashford on the left wing, because he's better on the left wing than he is on the right wing. As Jose Mourinho said, Marcus Rashford looks broken when he's on the right wing, and I fully agree. He's not a right winger, he's a left winger. So I think Marcus Rashford on the left wing, I think Raheem Sterling on the right wing, and Harry Kane up front. Now, the game is going to depend a lot on Harry Kane dropping deep, because England are not going to have much of the ball. So Harry Kane will have to drop deep when they start the counter-attack. Harry Kane is he's no benefits on the counter-attack, let's face it. What he can do on the counter-attack is hold the ball up. But I think that he needs to drop deep, and he needs to make those passes for Raheem Sterling and Marcus Rashford to run into the spaces that he vacates, and also the spaces that the wing-backs vacate. Because Germany's wing-backs are going to bomb forward. So the spaces that the wing-backs leave behind, that's the spaces that Rashford and Sterling need to exploit. And Harry Kane's the best passer in that team. So Harry Kane drops deep and he makes those passes because I don't trust Calvin Phillips and Declan Rice to make those passes. Now, it's not hard, difficult passes. It's passes that you're passing into the open field. You're not passing to someone. You're passing into the open field for Rashford and Sterling to run into. It's not difficult passes. However, Declan Rice and Calvin Phillips, they're not good passes at all. So people may say that's why you make a case for Jack Grealish. As I said, guys, I would play Jack Grealish in every single game. But that's not the way, because England are not set up that way, so I wouldn't play him in this game. But if it was up to me and I was managing the team and I was coaching the team, I would play Jack every game and I would play position football. But England are not coached like that. You have to understand, they're not coached like that. They are going to go into this game playing on a counter-attack. And that tactic is good to play against the Germans. Playing on a counter-attack is a good enough tactic against the Germans, because they are going to leave space in behind and they defend one-on-one. Marcus Rashford is a very good one-on-one player. Very good one-on-one player. He doesn't have skill to go past someone, but he has his pace that he utilizes to go past someone. Raheem Sterling can also play on the counter-attack. I'm not a big fan of Raheem Sterling. I think his technical ability is extremely bad, especially at the highest of levels. I do think that Manchester City have gone to a level that Raheem Sterling cannot play at anymore. And I do believe that City need to move Raheem Sterling on. However, this is a game for him playing on the counter-attack. As I said, Harry Kane needs to drop deep. Harry Kane needs to make those passes. The same passes he was making for Son when Jose Mourinho was there earlier on during the season, when Spurs were sitting like first on the log and everybody thought Spurs were going to win. Those win the league. Those are the same passes he needs to now make for Rashford and Sterling, and I do believe England can be successful. And then as the game goes on and England become more brave in possession and they get the ball and they figure out to themselves, you know what, we can actually pass this ball, we can actually move this ball, then you can start bringing on the likes of Jack Grealish to get on the ball and a Foden. But I certainly believe that needs to be the front three. Rashford, Kane, Sterling, that needs to be the front three. And I do think England will get the victory, guys. England will get the victory. But in saying all of this, the Germans will have the ball. The Germans will dictate the play because they've got better technical players and they are coached to do so. England cannot let Toni Kroos and Gundogan get on the ball. And they cannot give them the freedom of the park, They cannot give them the freedom of the park because Toni Kroos will pick that pass. He is fantastic. As I'm saying, he's one of the best passers. For me, he is the best passer of his generation. He's the best passer of his generation. So they cannot give Toni Kroos time on the ball. He will pick those passes. Gundogan as well will roam into areas where it's hard to pick him up, and he will play in those half spaces on the half turn. And they are fantastic in that. But I do believe England can beat and will beat this German team. Now, this is how I think the Germans will set up. The Germans play 3-4-3. We've seen that throughout this tournament. They've perfected that formation. They utilize the wing backs excellent. Gosens is magnificent on the left wing back role. And what can we say about Kimmich? I think Kimmich is a reincarnation of Philipp Lahm. You know, players that are world class and they can play in many different positions on the field, and wherever they play, they are world class and they're just so good. Their footballing IQ is what sets them apart. Footballing IQ, and Kimmich is one of the best. Kimmich is one of the best in his position, and in whatever position he plays in, he's one of the best. In the midfield, we know the Germans are going to play Toni Kroos and Gundogan. As I said earlier, England cannot give those players the time of day and they cannot give them the field of the park because they will pick those passes. They will pick those passes. They also need to be wary of Gundogan's movements because Gundogan can ghost pass people off the ball and you'll just find him in the box putting the ball in the back of the net like how he does for Manchester City. It's up front where it's a toss of the coin who they play. They can play Gnabry, Thomas Muller and Kai Havertz, which I do think they will play those players. So it will be a very interesting game, guys, but I am tipping England to win this. England are more disciplined. England can play on the counter-attack, which I believe is one of their main game plans going into games. I believe that's one of their main tactics is to play on the counter-attack, and they can play on the counter-attack, and I do think England will win. And as I said earlier in the video, if England win this, they will go all the way to the final. all the way to the final, because the fixtures after this are relatively easy teams that they should beat, teams like Denmark and so forth. So guys, that's my match preview for this game. I'll see you after the game for the match review. If you're watching this and you haven't subscribed to the channel, hit that subscribe button. I'm out. Peace.